So those are the three main things: forecasting, web scraping, and then automating tasks that we have been used by them for. Right now, it has been seen by 100,000 people and generate like almost 700 likes and reposts like 100 and so on. Because a lot of people are really interested in all of these new tools, right? How to use all of these new AI tools to augment your intelligence. So like not replace it, but just to augment it and to be basically like do better analysis, better things with your time.
Hello and welcome to Tech for Finance, where we help finance professionals leverage technology to level up their lives. I'm your host, Adam Shilton, and in this episode, we're chatting with Christian Martinez, Finance Automation Manager at the Kraft Heinz Company, conference speaker on AI in finance, and founder of the Financial Fox, a project to democratize machine learning and data analytics. Christian started his life in Mexico, but has traveled the world holding jobs in places like Switzerland, Australia, and the Netherlands. Christian founded the Financial Fox in 2017, before then starting at Kraft Heinz as finance, supply chain, and FP&A analyst in 2018. And since then, he's held positions as management accountant, senior financial controller, and now finance automation manager. Christian was also named one of the 30 under 30 in the accounting and finance industry in Australia in 2021 and won the EMEA Data Democratizer Award in 2022. Christian's also a marathon finisher and has traveled to over 65 countries. Before we start, if you like what you hear today, please make sure to subscribe to Tech Finance on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. So thanks for joining me today, Christian. It's great to have you on the show.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me, Adam.
No worries at all. So we'll get straight in because I know that you don't have a huge amount of time this morning, Christian, but it would be good for you to take us through what it means to be a finance automation manager. I'm sure there's lots of people that are quite envious of and potentially a job that's in high demand right now. So do you want to give us a bit about what you do at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. So I focus in like finance automation, especially in the supply chain finance like industry and function. So basically like manufacturing, logistics, and procurement. And then we do the finance part of it, right? So in our company, we have two international zones. So one is the US and Canada, and the other one is the rest of the world. So I'm in that second one, the rest of the world, which means basically that my scope is around 22 countries, more than 40 factories, more than 30 warehouses, and like different teams around the world. And the idea is to help them, the finance teams around the world, with analytics and automation. So what exactly do that? Well, we use a series of different tools like Alteryx, Tableau, Snowflake, and more recently, ChatGPT, to try to automate different processes across the world and basically to give time back to the business to do more and better data analysis.
Perfect. So you mentioned ChatGPT there. We'll come back to that in a second. I think as some more of these tools evolve with the likes of, Bard, still not great yet, and Bing Chat, we might in the future need to refer to it as generative AI, right? But for now, obviously everybody knows it as ChatGPT. So thanks for outlining some of the tools there, which you mentioned are analytics tools, right? The first question I have on the generative AI side of things, with the advent of these new AI technology, there's previously you might have some sort of robotic process automation platform to either connect data or automate the clicks that a human would do. How are you finding that's different now? Because generative AI isn't sort of and if this then carry out this task, it's more of a, I'm seeing it at the moment more aligned with soft skills rather than automating hard stuff. So I don't know what your perspective is.
Yeah, and it's actually very similar to what you said. So like right now for the automation part, we're still using Alteryx, for example, that basically carry all of the tasks and it's like, okay, we push a button or sometimes like automatically every day, every month or something. And then all of the script occurs and then different functions happen. But then we use mostly right now, like things like ChatGPT, just as you said, like to ask questions about how to improve certain process or to learn about certain areas of the business or of the like the world, even the supply chain, let's say. and then to really get more like creative on our solutions in terms of both analytics and automation. So some use cases, like for example, is like sometimes we are still trying to use, let's say, Python to do different things apart from all of the other tools that I was mentioning. So then now with ChatGPT is very, very easy. So like you just go and then you describe what you want to do, and then it generates the Python code for you. So then you have to tweak it maybe a little bit, but it's basically there, right? Or we already have, let's say, some Python codes, and then we have some mistakes or some error or something. You can also put it in ChatGPT, and it tells you where exactly the mistake and how to fix it. So we are trying to combine these two technologies, but for sure, we're not using ChatGPT just for the automation part as much.
Yeah. But there has been recent updates to say that OpenAI are moving towards plugins for ChatGPT, right? So this has made the ecosystem even bigger, right? So instead of now speaking to a chat window or using the API as a developer would, you've now got more of a Zapier type setup whereby you can say, right, well, ChatGPT interact with this app and interact with this app. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what way that goes. And it's fab. So going back to the point there that you mentioned about Python. So obviously you work in a very large organization. And I'm always keen to tease out some of the things that may be more usable for smaller businesses. Right? But before I ask you that, I guess the first question is, there is always a topic of conversation in finance teams about upskilling. What skills do we need to focus on, whether it's hard or soft? So of course, there's endless posts on LinkedIn about improving your Excel skills. There's endless posts about all sorts of other finance specific skills that people might upskill. But more recently, I have heard talk of finance teams wanting to get more up to speed with development languages and taking more control over the code piece. Now, obviously, traditionally, to learn Python, you'd need to be a developer and maybe have your 10,000 hours worth of experience in doing that. And I know you've got that because obviously you've done quite a lot of work with Python. But are we seeing now that with sort of a basic versing in Python, you can use tools like ChatGPT to basically create from scratch? Or do you still think there's a really big gap between businesses being able to do that if they've got no development knowledge?
Yeah, no, to be fair, ever since I started learning Python, like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I realized that learning Python is very easy because it's very close to the human language, to English. So then it's way easier than learning other things like C++ or Java. Like whenever I started like that project that you were mentioning, like the financial tax, the whole idea was like to democratize the access to using Python for finance professionals. And we taught them like a very simple like workshops and like step by step. And the thing is like the finance professionals that like do the workshops, they really started to use Python within weeks. So you don't really need like those like 10,000 hours for that specific programming language. Now, having said that, maybe you needed like a couple of weeks. So maybe 2 weeks doing a couple of projects, and then you could use Python at least for basic stuff, and even like for more like analytics stuff. Now with ChatGPT, that become hours because now you can really like even use like ChatGPT to learn Python and also to do the whole code in Python for you. As I was saying before, if you have mistakes, to tell you where the mistake is, and even to explain the code. Like after it does it for you, you say like, okay, what exactly is it doing? This doing, and then it explains for you. So then now those like couple of weeks that it will take you to learn Python to use it in finance, now it could be done in 1 day. So it has reduced a lot, but yeah, like I did wanted to mention that at least like the way we just started on the financial stocks, you didn't need the 10,000 hours. You needed just a couple of weeks to learn.
Right. Yeah. And I haven't gone into Python with generative AI yet. I will do because it's an interest. The most I've got so far is generating VBA code and also app scripts, which I think is JavaScript for Google Sheets and that sort of stuff. So I basically asked ChatGPT, generate me the app script to connect ChatGPT to Google Sheets, and it did it. But then, as you say, I asked it to explain what each element of the code was, and it rewrote it with little notes before each of the sections, and it's really good for that. So, but it's all about asking those questions, isn't it? Because there's a difference between saying generate me the code for this, and then pretend I'm an idiot, generate the code for this, and tell me, how it's all broken down.
Yeah.
So, for finance teams maybe aren't as up to speed with what you can do with a language like Python, what some of the use cases that you're seeing for being able to program with that sort of language?
Mhm. One of the main use cases that we have used it is for machine learning algorithms. So basically for forecast things in the business. So it can be like sales, it can be like labor spend, it can be basically like how much inventory do we need, and so on. The second part is for web scraping. So basically to go on the web and then just retrieve data. Let's say prices in like Tesco supermarkets or Albert Heijn supermarkets here in the Netherlands. And then to understand what's the price of each item, for example. And then create like a sales model to generate like which is the best price, like to optimize the pricing strategy, for example. Now, the third one that is especially for people that still are using a lot of Excel and PowerPoint is basically to automate different tasks of like, okay, before some of like people in Ep.018, they go to Excel, they create a model, there's an Excel table in there, and then they have to copy and paste that in PowerPoint, and maybe they did that like 50 different times every day. So with Python, you could automate that script, and then like, okay, whenever something happens, then basically it will do that copy paste of that table automatically for you. So those are the three main things. So like forecasting, web scraping, and then automating tasks that we have been used Python for.
But it is reliant on you having access to data in the first place, right? Because
Yeah, correct.
you're gonna need to connect it to a data source for that plan for things, yeah.
Yeah. So let's say like for these three specific examples, the forecasting part for sure, you do need the data part. For the web scraping, then it basically like grabs the data from all of the websites. And the third one on the automated tasks, you don't really need data, but you do need like a task to be done.
Yeah.
But for the first one of machine learning, for sure, you do need data, and that's one of the things that takes the most amount of time and the most important parts to generate, let's say, a good forecast.
Fine. And what I'll do in the show notes of the podcast is I'll include some links, with some use cases and a more detailed breakdown for all of these, because some of the listeners won't completely understand what web scraping is, for example. So I'll provide the links and reference material for that in the interest of time, to save you having to explain in more detail, because I appreciate we don't have all the time in the world here, which is great. So on the machine learning side of things, and previous guest I had was Glenn Hopper. I don't know whether you're familiar with the name. He's doing quite a lot of work in the AI space, especially in finance. And he sort of broke down the building blocks of starting to be able to use AI. So first is people and process, so it's pointless in trying to build an understanding if your data is rubbish. Likewise, it's pointless trying to automate a process if it's a bad process. And he gave some examples of some data tools. But coming back to that machine learning piece that you mentioned earlier, are there any applications that you're using for machine learning that you plug in your Python script into?
When you mean applications, you mean like, let's say like a web application that you
Or
put
the
the code?
algorithm or whatever it is.
Okay, yep. It's more like, let's say you can generate the algorithm like using Python and like writing the code there.
Okay.
But then you do need a tool to run that algorithm. So one of the easiest ones to start with is from Google, and it's called Google Colab. That is basically like a Google Sheets, but for coding. So then you go in there and then you type your Python script, and then it run it for you. And then either it generates new data, for example, or it automates like certain tasks, for example, or something. So that's one of the web apps that like it's used in conjunction with Python. The other one is, let's say, there's another one called Jupyter Notebooks that it's basically the same thing. So just like it's like a notebook wherever you plug in your code and then it will like run it for you.
Okay. Google Colab and Jupyter
Notebooks. Yeah.
Node groups. Okay, fine. I'll put those in the show notes as well. So thanks for that. And in your view, one of the positive things about AI is it's now becoming easier to develop, easier to use tools. So from your perspective, if a finance is looking at a problem and thinking, right, do we either bring in somebody with experience in Python or learn Python ourselves with the help of ChatGPT using, in the example of machine learning, stuff like Google Colab and the other one that you mentioned? Or do we just buy an off-the-shelf low-code tool? Because there's tons out there now, So what is your mentality when it comes to picking your battles, essentially? What is that decision criteria?
Yep, that's a very good question. And especially like when you mentioned that you were trying to like in the show, like to do a lot of advice also like for startups, right? And like for smaller companies. I do think that for startup companies, it's better to go with the off-the-shelf tool that it's already built. And then I just like normally the pricing is not like that much. There are like some that okay, you can pay like either 10 euros or 10 pounds per month or per a couple of months or something like that. And it's already built for you. There's this use case that I was thinking actually even like in a large enterprise of like how to input all of the documents that you have on the business, all of the business knowledge, like, okay, we have like these factories, we have like these processes, we have these people and so on. And to use ChatGPT for people to basically be onboarded into the business that they can use like, let's say like, in a similar fashion to ask questions and generate the answers. So I was thinking of how to do it. And then I discovered over the weekend, there's this tool called Cody that is basically done that. So it's, you just upload either like PowerPoints or like spreadsheets or like Word documents or something about your business. And then it generates like the same UI, the same user interface of ChatGPT. But then now all of your information is there. And then obviously because you want your information to be private and everything, you have to pay for this all. But again, it's like less than 100 per month. And then if someone would go to develop this tool, for sure, it wouldn't take like 100 like euros in terms of like time of like a developer or even any like finance analyst to try to get it done, right? So then I do think that having these off-the-shelf apps like already built by another company, it's really really useful.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And what did you say it was called? Cody, CODIE?
CODY.
CODY. Okay, fine. We'll put that in the show notes as well. There's,
Yeah.
there's like 10 every day, isn't there?
Yeah, actually, just on that note, like yesterday I was literally compiling this like this list of new AI tools for finance and today. One of these was Cody, but then I have like a bunch of others. And then I finished the list because again, like it was like for my self interest. But then I was like, okay, I'll put it into LinkedIn. And then I just put it yesterday. And I think right now it has been seen by 100,000 people and generate like almost 700 like likes and reposts like 100 and so on. Because a lot of people are like really interested in all of these like new tools, right?
Yeah, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes as well because I did see that yesterday, so people can pick up on that. Another resource that's pretty good is a newsletter called Superhuman by, I forget his second name, but it's called Zane, but I'll put him in the show notes as well. But there's a ton now because AI is so prolific, and I think if we're not careful, we're going to get overwhelmed pretty quickly, right? So I think.
Yep.
It's great to see the lists now. And I did this again over the weekend is I was looking through, finance AI tools and all of that sort of stuff. The other thing to be aware of as well is with the advent of, really fast development of these concepts and these apps, a lot of them are still in pre-release stage.
Yep.
So I was going through and my use case, as I mentioned to you before we started, is speeding up the production of the podcast because I just want to spend time speaking to intelligent people. I don't want to spend time writing up show notes and writing up transcripts. I don't want to do that. So I went on this site which had a load of AI tools. I put that in the show notes as well. I think it's called There's an AI for that. Again, there's so many. And I was clicking through all of them in the use cases, and they all say sign up to waitlist, sign up to waitlist, sign up to waitlist. And what they're doing there is they're essentially gauging marketplace interest.
Yeah.
And I think the general rule that people are saying is that if you develop a new idea and you get, a 30% conversion rate of people that visit the landing page, for example, it's an idea that should be built. Yeah. But likewise, I think we're going to see a lot of these tools that people are signing up for, but they don't get the level of interest that they wanted, and they just don't get developed, full stop.
Yeah,
so when people are looking through these tools, it's great to see the art of the possible in the future, but just be wary that don't spend a huge amount of time rebuilding your business around these tools, especially if a lot of them are still in pre-release stage, right?
Yep. Yeah. No, that's absolutely right.
But it's great. I love seeing all of this stuff, but I'd say it's just going to be a challenge in keeping up. And I always go back to principles whenever I write about this is, don't lose track of the fundamentals. AI isn't going to slow down. Yeah, it's going to become easier to use. Yeah, and I personally believe that the concept of prompt engineering in the future is going to disappear because AIs are going to get better at learning, to infer what we mean. So I don't think people need to get bent out of shape on learning how to ask machines questions, even though I think in the short term, there's probably an argument for that. But yeah, focus on fundamentals and then use AI strategically as opposed to thinking, oh my God, we've got to completely reinvent our business, right? I don't know whether you agree or whether that aligns with your thinking.
No, definitely. Like it does resonate a lot because, as you said, like there's a lot of different tools. So you have to like cherry pick which ones they align to like your basically your business fundamentals. So as you said, like some of them they will throw the line and it's like plug and play, but then some others you would need to fundamentally change the way you do your business, and maybe those ones are not the best decision for someone to go into at first.
Yeah. So in your view, again, coming back to the small business example, I mean, you've got years of experience working for a large enterprise under your belt. You mentioned some Python examples there of the different applications of Python, but taking a step back from that, would you recommend a small business trying to use AI to better achieve their objectives? Is it as simple as just assessing some of the low code tools out there, picking the challenge, we need, a better forecast, right? Well, what AI enabled tool is best for that? Oh, we want to spend less time in spreadsheets, right? Well, have a look at whatever business intelligence platform is best for that application. Is that what you'd suggest as a starting point, or do you have a different theory?
No, definitely. Like for startups specifically, it's way better to just like browse like which tools are available already out there, and then to try to see like which ones like they can use, right? Like, and not just in finance, but even like for startups they normally try to focus more of like, okay, what's our product like, okay, where we are trying to achieve, where would be our users, and so on and so on, and how to capture those users, for example. And I just say like to automate tasks, again, not just in finance but like in anything, like as you were mentioning, like if you do like a podcast, for example, how to automate like certain tasks so that you can spend more time talking to people. There are also a lot of like video creators that is the same thing. Like maybe some of the videos, like they really spend time on that, but then to create them, to make them like shorter and then be able to publish them like in YouTube Shorts or TikTok or something. Now there are tools that they do that, like automatically for you, or maybe like some part of the editing. So in every industry, I do think that there are a lot of use cases. And then if you start like browsing, like as a startup founder or like as a person that works in a startup, on all of these tools, then it will be really useful on how to like save time and do more things with your time, basically.
Okay, thanks for that. So, finance professions specifically, there has always been talk about automation, replacing people, and it's not just in finance; it's over everything. And I've been listening to interesting topics recently about artificial general intelligence, which is meant to be like getting to that singularity moment where machines become more intelligent than people, and it's humans that are, I wouldn't say controlled, but basically the intelligence is the machines, not the people. Some people are predicting different horizons of that. We've got some people saying 2 years. We've got some people saying 20 years. Um, and I'm trying not to think about the negative consequences, because actually I'm personally quite excited by this. I'm an optimist, and I think, more free time to do stuff like, play golf, spend time with kids, all of that sort of stuff. I'm all for that. But for the people that are looking at their careers and thinking, well, there's still quite a lot of admin that I do in part of my as part of my role, or I'm not in an FP&A role and I'm not in a leadership position. Does that mean that my job's at risk of automation? How would you advise that people think about that? What are there any skills that people can be focusing on that you think are going to stand the test of time, are likely to improve their career prospects? I mean, how are you thinking about ways that finance can protect their careers as AI and these tools become more advanced?
Yeah, no, that's a pretty good question. And I actually asked myself that question whenever I started, like, let's say, getting into finance, like even like the education part. And then I was like, okay, which type of skills do I need in order to like, again, with all of the admin of like new technologies. And again, that was like 10 years ago. But I discovered that there were like two set of skills that I needed. One on the soft skills part, and the second one in the technical skills part. And I still think they're very relevant. So the first one in the technical skills part is programming. And now it's not even like really just like how to get programming, but even like how to use all of these new AI tools to augment your intelligence. So like not replace it, but just to augment it and to be basically like do better analysis, better things with your time. And the second one, it was storytelling and stakeholder management. So I think on the part of like soft skills, that interaction that you have with other people across your business, especially in FP&A, is very important. And also that ability, like in finance and FP&A as well, on telling stories and basically communicating concisely and simple your ideas, it's really useful. So those two set of skills, I think, are the ones that are the most important to have.
Yeah, and I'll link to it in the show notes as well. But I saw recently, was it yesterday? You released, I think, on Medium, how to drive business success and build strong relationships with different stakeholders in FP&A, right?
Yeah.
So I'll link to that in the show notes. What was I'm guessing it comes back to what you've just said there. You're trying to provide advice with Financial Fox on, more of the developer side of things. But I guess with this sort of content, you're trying to boost awareness of those soft skills, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like I also like a very huge advocate for like soft skills and like the importance they have for like people in their careers. And especially if you develop them early, then you will be able to really grow into your career.
Yeah, because if we take, my kids' generation, again, we talked before for the podcast, I've got 2.5-year-old and a 9-month-old. Um, their their career prospects are going to be drastically different, right? That they're not going to need to learn how to write Excel formulas. They're not going to need to really, I don't think they're really going to need how to learn to code, so it's very much about how do we improve that ability to ask, I guess, better questions, um, and how do we forget about the more of the hard stuff. I'm not saying that the hard stuff is going to go away completely, right? But when we look about the way that work is likely to shift, it's going to be the people that are the creative thinkers, the people that are able to think in more abstract ways that can have the real advantage, especially as you say, if they're augmenting their work with
Mhm.
the use of AI, right? And there's a whole separate conversation about, the way that the current education system is, potentially flawed, and we're moving towards a world where everybody's got tailored education, that's specific to their unique skills and all of this sort of stuff. But as I say, it's a conversation for another time. So, all good. So, no, just to paraphrase you then, essentially, you still believe that there is in the short term a case for developing hard skills, coding, how to leverage AI tools. But obviously in doing that, we've got to get a balanced view that says, right, well, it's not just about the hard stuff. It's about, how do we present better? How do we communicate those concepts, and how do we improve our work there? Okay, cool. So
Yeah, definitely. And just to add to that as well, I remember like when I was a kid, so like my parents, like especially my mom, she's a very huge advocate about this like entrepreneurial mindset. And then when I was like younger, like 20 years ago, like 25 years ago, being an entrepreneur was very different to being an entrepreneur right now, right? So it was not about the technology, like okay, like social media didn't exist, like smartphones, they didn't exist, anything, but it was like they always told me about like that entrepreneurial thinking as in the ability of solving problems
yeah,
and really to start doing like more with less. And then I grew up with that. And then even in my like different schools that at first like they put me like for kindergarten and for primary school and so on. And all of those schools, there were also very huge advocates for that entrepreneurial thinking. And I didn't really understand the value of it until I went to Australia. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I'm trying to solve all of these different problems, like at work and things like that. And all of the tools that I received from my parents and from those goals, they were really helpful. And then that's one of the key points that made me become like myself entrepreneur with the financial focus in Australia.
100%. And it's good that you had kind of that moment where everything came together. I love hearing stories like that. And it's obviously working well for you, right? So all good. And I suppose that the last point on that, and uh, coming back to the whole point around data democracy that we've been talking about, once all of these tools are available to everyone, we're then moving into a territory where it is quality of thought and ideas that's the game changer, not whether you can build something or not. So imagine a
Yep.
world where anybody can develop anything. The people that are going to do well are the people with the best ideas, not the ones that can code.
Yep.
It-
Definitely.
have you heard of the concept of disposable apps?
No, actually, no.
So obviously in the physical world, there's the concept of disposable things, whether it's a biodegradable paper cup or, things that serve a single purpose and then are disposed of. With the ability to now create apps and tools so quickly now, are people forecasting, if they're not doing it already, that people are going to be able to focus on a challenge, and it could be something trending, it could be something happening in an industry and saying, right, well, I've got a couple of days to sort that problem, let's build an app. People only have to use it once and then they
Mm,
get rid of it. And the only example that I can think of really off the top of my head right now is HubSpot. Sometimes when people implement HubSpot, they'll accidentally import duplicate contacts like I did, and there is an app that you can get called Deduply, which basically gets rid of all your duplicates. Now, there's a case to say that you only ever really need to use that once, right?
mm.
If you're working with a lot of data, then you might pay for the subscription to make sure that your database is always cleansed. But that is a use case that says, right, well, we've gone out to that, use it and get rid of it. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that pretty soon.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a very interesting thing as well. Because I was like, even for like in what I do, like in finance and FP&A, but like in the automation part, we try to develop these tools for people in our business. Like as I was saying, with using like Alteryx and so on. And normally, like we always focus on like, okay, how can the tool be flexible enough that it can be used as much time as possible? But
Yep.
it's a very interesting concept what you said as well. Like, okay, maybe there are some use cases that it only need to be used once, but then it's better just to develop something quickly, and then they just use it once, as you said, with the duplicates.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. So food for thought, eh? Food for thought. It's interesting to see where things are going to come. So the last question, because I know we've come up to time and you need to get away, is I'm always keen to know what people use personally as part of their tech stack, if you like. So have you got a favorite in like your personal, it could be professional as well, but in your personal life that you couldn't live without, that you absolutely love?
Oh, well, different tech stack itself, like it's professional, but the one that I love the most is Tableau.
Tableau.
So Tableau is like a data visualization tool that it's very similar to Power BI, just like different competitors. But then I have used it a lot in terms of like, as I was saying, like that part of the data storytelling and how to tell a story with numbers, especially to like leadership and people around across the company. And I do think that that's one of the best tools on my tech stack right now.
Very good. And you don't like have a favorite phone app or anything that you use in your personal life or anything like that?
In my personal life, I was using quite a lot 1 month ago this app called Blinklift,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Blink Bliss. That's a good one.
and then it's basically like, yeah, for people that are saying also like it's an app that gives you book summaries,
Yeah.
and then it can also like read it for you or just like tell them in a very simple and concise way. And I thought it was really great. I was using it for a couple of months, especially to like know certain books. And then like, if I really like them, then I bought the book. But then if not, at least I got a gist of it.
Yeah.
Now I just discovered that ChatGPT can do exactly the same. And it can even give you chapter summaries. So one of my favorite books is The Lean Startup. And then
Oh,
And then apart from just like saying to ChatGPT, like, give me a book summary for the lean startup, you can say, give me a book summary for chapter one. And it gives you for chapter two, and so on and so on. So in a way, it's even better than English. And obviously it's for free. So I have, but I have to say like until a couple of months ago, English was one of my favorite ones.
I didn't know it could do that, because I did ask ChatGPT to do some book summaries for me, and it came back. And this was, I think, GPT-3 when it first came out, and it came back saying something like, I can't summarize copyrighted material or something like that. I can't remember the warning, but
Oh, okay. I didn't try that first. It's I think I have tried it from last week onwards, and it summarized them very well.
okay,
So,
fine. No, that's interesting to know. But again, that there's then a question, yeah, and definitely a conversation for another day, right? But if you're producing copyrighted content and then a chatbot can just summarize it so people don't have to read it at all, I don't know whether there's.
yeah, I know. I know what I mean.
But no, it's a great hack. Don't get me wrong. Especially books that have stood the test of time, like the Lean Startup. There's probably a lot of information in the public domain on it, right? So,
I mean, yeah. And to be fair, for example, when I was using Blinklist, it was more of like, okay, get the summary, but then if I really like it, then to buy the book, right? Because it's so much better to read the actual book than just the summary. But then there are also so many books that maybe for you personally, they are not that good. So then with this ability, you can at least save your time and then read the summary and say like, okay, it's not for me. It will be for a lot of other people. But then I don't need to buy the book because it's not for me, right? But
yeah,
then with the others, then you are still encouraged to buy the book. So then it really depends on how they see it, I guess. Or
yeah,
even as a last use case that I realized as well, I'm trying to put a little newsletter about it, but basically ChatGPT can also create fiction stories
yeah,
for you. So it depends on the prompts that you put, but then you can put like your favorite TV show, and then you put like, oh, okay, I want a book similar to the Big Bang Theory, but about finance analysts. And then it creates, and it again, you can put like, write me the first chapter, the second chapter, and so on. And then, okay, now I want something to happen with an meteorite, with an asteroid coming to Earth, and then destroying everything, and then it works. So it's really like more like funny just case, but then it can also be used as an help for writers, like actual writers,
yeah,
to okay generate more ideas or like to test different things and so on.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I think like the possibilities are definitely endless with these
Oh,
new
it's
technologies.
never ending, is it? It's never ending. No, good, very good. No, I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Excellent. So where can people find out more about you, Christian? Where do you want people to?
Yeah, no, definitely. So the main one is just LinkedIn. So if you can put my URL for that, that'll be great.
Yeah.
That's the main thing that I'm using to communicate my thoughts. And the second one is Medium. So I do hope that like Medium is like a place like for different professional blogs type of thing. And then I have been trying to write a lot now, like especially about like ChatGPT, but I always write about finance and FP&A. And as you were saying about like these soft skills like storytelling or like stakeholder management. So those are the two main things.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent. So I'll put all of those as links in the show notes, but Christian, really appreciate you coming on. It's been an excellent conversation, and maybe we can have another catch up in 6 months to see how all of this has evolved. So no, really good. Thanks again for your time.
Definitely great. Thanks for having me.